Howdy folks, it's Zach, and welcome back to my Star Wars Tips and Tricks section, and today we're doing another episode of Real Talk with Real Gamers, and tonight we've got an episode all about Uprisings. Now there's kind of a big question mark about what Uprisings will entail, so to help us figure that out, I've got with me again my co-hosts, Penny and Xenov. What's up, guys?
Hey.
Hey, what's going on?
And with me again for a third time in a row is our very special beta playing guest, Zadek. How's it going, man?
I'm doing well.
Very cool. So guys, let's just go ahead and just dive right into this. Let's talk Uprisings a little bit. Obviously, we've been talked to a lot by the devs about getting grouped content, quote unquote, in the future. You know what I'm saying? Where they're always kind of like, it was always like ... like, you know, people were pressing them and they were never really committing to it. And now finally they announced, okay, we're going to have Uprisings and an Uprising system. And, you know, if apparently the meter of galactic dark to light sways one way to the other, we might find bad guys on some planet attacking us. That doesn't sound so good. So let's talk a little bit about Uprisings tonight. So Zadek, I hope you don't mind if we start with you. You've had a chance to play in the beta, and this is just also a little note to my viewers. Zadek's been playing in the beta, but he has sworn to secrecy about not talking about certain elements of the beta. I don't want to put him on the hot spot. Unless it gets me more viewers. So Zadek, what are you able to tell us about Uprisings?
So, I don't know exactly an itemized list on what I'm allowed to divulge, but I will say that they are phased instances, much like flashpoints or Star Fortresses, and they're really short incursions. They're shorter than flashpoints and way shorter than Star Fortresses. And
wow.
Can I, just based on a preliminary run of the one that I did, can prove quite difficult, actually.
That's good to hear.
Difficult how so? Like, in comparison to, say, Nightmare Raiding, which you, Penny, and Xenov have done a lot of.
Well, I didn't get a chance to test it with a group. I did do a solo run, which was set to story mode, and there were times that made me clench up a little bit.
Wow. So, like, for me, the only solo experience I've ever really had that happen to me with was, the fight with Rev in story mode when it was bugged. And you couldn't actually finish that fight. And when they, like, tripped it again to where they never gave you the health buff at the end of that. So now all the bad guys still hit you for as hard as they always did, but now you don't have that extra, like, 100,000 health. Anyway, story for another day. Was actually the Eternal Championship. The Eternal Championship, I actually, as a part-time gamer now, actually was experiencing some trouble throughout those fights, having not gotten the full load of raid gear that other people had. So would you say it's kind of on that layer of micromanaging, you have to know your character and your companion and manage both extremely effectively?
Yes, I will say that, especially when you open the first door and you forget your companion is set to DPS instead of heal.
Oh my god.
Oh my god. Yes.
Yeah, it was quite the test of your skill. However, like once you are go in prepared and everything, there's still some challenges to it, even on solo. But much like the Star Fortresses, there will be power-ups along the way. And so, yeah, it's definitely interesting.
Okay. Now, as far as you said, that one was done solo. Are you able to tell us if there was group versions of this?
There are group versions. I just didn't have anyone available at the time to group with. I was just testing out the Galactic Command, seeing what it did, and tried one on solo.
Right. And then there's a different reward system too, depending on if you're in there solo or as a group.
To be honest, I don't know. I don't remember any rewards actually at the end.
That's cool. Penny, Xenop, what are you guys able to remember about Uprisings?
Good question.
Go ahead, Tom.
I will be honest, I haven't read very much into it. I'm just excited there's group content of some sort. It brings me some hope for the future.
I know that it's a group of 4. I know you can set the difficulty. They didn't really say if there's going to be rewards or not, which, as of right now, I mean, that's to be expected. And hearing that they're actually difficult, that's awesome. Because sometimes, I know not most people can walk into a flashpoint and do it, like with a pug.
Yeah.
But to hear that they're actually difficult and that they're actually going to, require some thought is actually really cool. And the fact that they are not the exact same thing over and over again like Star Fortresses.
Right. Now let's talk difficulty here, guys, because for the audience out there, you wherever gaming you're familiar with, whether it be MMO, first-person shooter, stuff like that, difficulty actually takes a lot of different forms. And what I'm seeing right now in Knights of the Eternal Throne is there's actually a couple. It's a very standardized version of difficulty, where one of the things I like about if you play some other games, the difficulty will frustrate you because of the way it's designed. And in Final Fantasy XIV, what's really amazing is, like, if you get hit by anything, you're pretty much dead. But they give you a gigantic, like, cone of vision of where that big attack is coming from and time to avoid it. So as long as you're paying attention, for the most part, you're doing okay. It's difficult because, yes, it hits hard, but not so bad because you can also learn the patterns and avoid it. Whereas then, if you flip into, like, Guild Wars 2 and you go right into Heart of Thorns, you basically are getting smashed by every lobby creature in there for, like, a ton of your health. What I'm seeing a little bit in Eternal Throne is that difficulty looks to be less about learning new mechanics and more about the bad guys just seem to hit a lot harder. Does that seem to be kind of in line with what you've been noticing so far?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, just based on what we've read and just based on the stuff that they're releasing with the class changes, I mean, I'm anticipating stuff hitting like trucks.
Yeah. Exactly. So let's talk a little bit about this. How would a player coming into Knights of the Eternal Throne get ready for this kind of content?
Definitely do Star Fortresses. At least that's what I'm going to assume. Zeta can confirm. Doing solo Star Fortresses as I'm just a DPS on the side. Mm-hmm. Zach, doing it by myself and trying to get the achievements for doing it by myself with a companion was difficult for me. Like, I'm not a DPS.
Yeah.
And so I had to do Star Fortresses, like, on repeat to try and get these achievements. And so, honestly, if you've never done the Star Fortresses and you're new, do the Star Fortresses to prep for the Uprisings. Oh, because you can do it with multiple people in Star Fortresses too, or by yourself.
Yeah. And that brings up another question. Is Uprisings almost, like this happened with the Eternal Throne, where everybody felt like, hey, so you need to be a DPS to do this? And everybody kind of felt like forced into a DPS position with a companion being, a healer. Is that, do we think that's going to repeat with Uprisings now if you do it solo?
No, I don't think so. I think you could do it in any spec combination with your companion that you want. Like I said, I haven't tried it with a group, so I don't know if they are role neutral. Like the tacticals, you can have 4 DPS queue up and run a tactical. I don't know if they will require the 10 kilo do 2 DPS combo, or if they will be role neutral.
Alright, what would we like to see there? Because we feel like it's fair just to make things quote-unquote more difficult by just making everything hit harder, or are we craving a little bit more for something that makes you and your team have to work a little bit more tactically?
I mean, I obviously want mechanics. Mechanics plus a good range of difficulty to heal through is ideal for me.
Yeah. To a certain extent, I feel if you inflate the damage too much, at that point it's just artificial difficulty.
Yeah.
To a certain extent. You gotta have obviously some sort of mechanics in there, otherwise it just becomes a big heal through it and beat through it as fast as possible.
Yeah.
And that'll get stale very, very quickly, I feel.
Mm-hmm.
I think that one thing would benefit this game a lot. What Pinion Xenov said for sure I agree with, but also a clear-cut message that says, hey, this is difficult, or this, what to expect out of what you're doing.
Yeah.
Like, the message on the weeklies or something for the operations that say recommended gear rating, yeah, that's all fine and dandy, but if it actually broke down and said, hey, from story mode to hard mode, there's extra mechanics. From hard mode to nightmare, there's, increased damage, health, mechanics, stuff like that. Something that's more clear-cut that says, hey, this is different than what you're used to.
Yeah. I actually wish they had that on some tank armor, where it was just spray painted across it saying, like, contents under pressure. Letting you know what you're dealing with on the inside. You know what I'm saying? Or it's, I think truth in advertising would be kind of nice here a little bit. Because, yeah, I'm definitely of the opinion where, for me, when we talk about making harder content, I feel like that's always the danger, is just by artificially inflating the damage that's going out. If we just say, like, well, these guys will hit harder, that makes it tougher. Yeah, it does, but then is that a fair way to make it tougher? I feel like adding in layers of complexity where it's like, oh, well, 3 people have to be standing on these different platforms to activate this one thing that happens over here, and then the tank has to maneuver this bad guy into position so that way it can do this thing, and then you have this amount of time for your DPS then to do this thing. It's like, whoa, that actually takes, like, team effort. And that all of a sudden becomes like how teams bond together. I feel like that kind of difficulty, when it's mechanic based, really makes you feel like you and your team are like an intramural sport, where it's like, hey, we're a bunch of friends, we're all hobbyists, but we came together and look at this awesome thing. We managed to pull this thing off. It took coordination and a certain amount of like game dexterity. Whereas when things just hit harder, I'm kind of with Xenov, where you're kind of like, oh, so if I just have a rank 50 companion who heals like a mad dog, and I can just know my defenses well enough, I can pretty much just pound my way through this and get the reward that I'm looking for. I feel like that does kind of get old and kind of stale kind of quickly. So that's where my worry kind of comes in a little bit. Now let me ask you this about the Uprisings. Thank you. I was like, what's the word? What's the word? I was thinking Star Fortresses. And then I was like, Fates. No, this isn't Final Fantasy 14. But the thing I was wondering about Uprisings, because you said they're really short, is this, do you feel like a way to really value players' time? Because each game, MMO, is starting to try to deal with this a little differently. One of the things I like about Guild Wars 2 is that every activity you do gives you XP. And almost everything you do gives you some kind of benefit or reward. It's one of the reasons I log into that game every single stupid day. Even if I'm not even going to play it for longer than 10 seconds, I log in and they give me something for it. It's like I'm like a rat with, cocaine in the cage or something. It's like you push the tablet
Kara
and it's
was
like
similar.
Yeah. Do you feel like Uprisings, because they are short, do you feel like that helps value MMO players' time because they can just jump right into something?
Yeah, I think it would, actually, because you don't have to, devote a whole bunch of time to it. Like, there's been problems before in Flashpoints where people are just, spacebar, 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 because for whatever reason they're on a time crunch or, whatever. Like, it's something you can get on, do in 10, 15, 20 minutes or whatever, and then be done with it, instead of having to devote 45 minutes to an hour on something and, might not even be able to finish it.
Yeah. Penny and Xenov, what do you guys think?
I mean, some flashpoints are longer than others, so if some uprisings are longer than others, I'm not going to complain.
Yeah.
I don't mind. I'm actually one of those people who spacebar everything. Everybody knows this. If they've listened to any other podcasts, I'm notorious for it. The first time through, if there's cutscenes, I'll definitely watch it. But the second time through, I'm not spacebarring. Not because I'm in a time crunch, just because I've already watched the cutscene.
Yeah.
So I think if they're a little bit different in time, maybe one's 15 minutes, maybe one's 30 minutes, that would be cool.
How about you, Xenoff?
As long as there's none that I'm sitting here for an hour or so doing.
Yeah.
Like, say, God help, I love it, but False Emperor. Something like that long, or something.
Yeah.
As long as they're very interesting. If there's good stuff going on, I'm obviously going to want to play it more. Perfect example, I hate Directive 7.
Oh, yeah, really? Yeah.
If there's things like that that are just, in my opinion, obviously opinions differ, if they're bland, I'm not going to want to do them. So, as long as they're interesting, engaging, and not ridiculously long, I think it'll be pretty good for it.
Okay. Well, on that note, we're going to have to wrap this episode up because several of the members in this channel have to get to their own raid. So I just want to thank my viewers. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to another episode of Real Talk with Real Gamers. And again, this was Penny I was going to say Zainoff. Xenov and Zadik. And thank you guys again. And obviously, if you have some ideas of what you'd like to see in your Uprisings, or if you have some questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to put those in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you guys have to think about Uprisings. And do you think that the new Uprising system is going to be valuable to your time as a gamer? Do you feel like a shorter time frame is going to do more for you, or do you like the classic Flashpoint raid system? Let me know below. Anyway, guys, that's all we have time for, so we'll see you next time.